Good day to you. I'm Danilo Evangelista, and welcome to our tropical weather outlook for September 20th, Saturday. Today we're going to go over Gabrielle and the worldwide tropics, something that we don't do often, but I want to show you that globally it looks like tropics are now finally beginning to ramp up, and they are beginning to ramp up pretty quickly. So I'm going to go over Gabrielle. I'm going to go over activity that's happening in the Pacific, and we're going to go over what to expect here in the next week, obviously, especially in the Atlantic. Let's start off with the National Hurricane Center, as we typically do every single video. Here's the latest on Tropical Storm Gabrielle. Strengthening this morning, and it's continuing to get its act together. In fact, there's actually recon in Gabrielle, which I'll show you in a little bit, and it is looking like this is actually beginning to strengthen. Maximum sustained winds right now at 60 miles per hour with a minimum central pressure of 1,001 millibars, located at 25.0 north and 59.0 west, and it is moving northwest at 13 miles per hour. And then we also have another area here in the Atlantic too, part of the multiple areas of interest that we are watching in the Atlantic right now. Yesterday I also mentioned that beyond the next week we might have to watch the Gulf of Mexico as well. So yeah, things are beginning to heat up here in the Atlantic. And then in the Eastern Pacific as well, we have Invest 96E and Invest 97E. Invest 96E had its chance to develop a few days ago, but looks like it no longer will be able to do so. It's moving into less favorable conditions. But 97E, on the other hand, is now at an 80% chance of development in the next 7 days and up to a 60% chance in the next 48 hours. So looking more and more likely that 97E will develop and probably become our next storm here. So the activity, the gravy train of activity here still going strong in the Eastern Pacific, and 97E might actually have a decent chance to become a pretty strong storm here in the Pacific, probably going to add to the array of strong storms that we have going on globally right now, as I'll show you in a little bit. Let's start off with Gabrielle, though, with a current satellite loop of how it's doing today. And you can see it's definitely much better organized now, not dealing with the wind shear that it was dealing with for the past several days. You could actually see here we have some pretty nice outflow, meaning that the winds atop of Gabrielle are moving away from the storm, and meaning that the storm is being allowed to breathe. And that's usually a good sign that this has favorable atmospheric conditions for intensification. You could even see, too, Gabrielle starting to attain that, what we like to call a shrimp look, where its convective cloud structure is starting to resemble more in the shape of a shrimp, if you know what I mean, kind of curling in here. And you could also see some convective bursts right around the center here also occurring. So Gabrielle intensifying, getting better organized, and you could actually even see here on the microwave satellite shot. This is the latest satellite shot that I could find for Gabrielle, and once again you could see that shrimp kind of shape to it. Almost has a banding eye beginning to develop here, meaning that the eye and the core of the storm is connected to a band. And this is probably strengthening and definitely on its way to becoming a hurricane as we speak, getting more organized. And in fact, recon is inside the storm right now, and they did find a pressure in the 997, 998 millibar range inside of Gabrielle, and this pass was just as of a few minutes ago. And also, too, pay attention to these flight level winds. We even have a reading of one here above 55 knots in the flight level. So definitely means that Gabrielle is strengthening. And I think that does line up pretty well as well with the National Hurricane Center current intensity of 60 miles per hour. Although the pressure is probably slightly lower than what the National Hurricane Center has at 1,001 millibars. That's what the National Hurricane Center has as of their current advisory. Maybe it's down to 1,000, maybe 999 millibars, but Gabrielle is strengthening, and it's gonna continue to do so over the next several days. It's going to become a hurricane, and I think it's almost a sure thing now at this point that it will be a hurricane. Our next hurricane of the season. National Hurricane Center forecasts that this will happen by tomorrow morning. Wouldn't be shocked, honestly, if this happens by this evening, if it continues to organize the way it is. But will definitely be a hurricane by tomorrow morning. I'll tell you that. Then it's going to move off to the north here. The forecast track now is remaining pretty well east of Bermuda, so good news for those in the island of Bermuda, of which there are people. It's not like Bermuda is a desert island without anybody living in it. Gabrielle will pass to the east, so you will not be in the direct line of fire for a direct landfall. But again, as I mentioned before, just because you don't have to be in the direct center of the storm. You don't have to have a direct landfall on top of you to feel impacts from the storm. And Gabrielle will definitely kick up the ocean here, if you know what I mean, with rip currents and very large swells, which will definitely impact Bermuda. And if the wind field gets large enough, maybe we might even see some gusty winds and maybe some rain bands here in Bermuda, even if we won't get a direct landfall. Which is why I still mention potential impacts to Bermuda, and I still mention Gabrielle in the first place because, this is going to go out to sea, sure, and definitely stay well out along the East Coast, but, stuff like swells, high waves, rip currents are still impacts being felt by tropical cyclones, even if they're not going to bring a direct impact. And especially with rip currents, they do take lives, and they have definitely taken quite a bit of lives so far this year, and even if they don't take lives, they put a lot of lives at risk, especially when people are not careful when they're along the coastline, maybe for the beach, because September, definitely people are coming back to school, coming back to work, but maybe sometimes people are still out on the beaches during the weekend. So you got to be careful with what happens with Gabrielle here, and a lot of people as well, when it comes to rip currents, tend to not be careful enough. So I want to point that out, that we're going to have to watch here still, even though this will remain out to sea. But one place that might actually have to watch for real impacts, and these people tend to get very much overlooked because, once again, they're just a bunch of random islands in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, but the Azores Islands, which is all the way back to the northeast over here. A lot of people don't really talk about the Azores a lot, but Gabrielle might actually be a pretty decent impact to the Azores Island. And again, people live there, and this is probably going to happen around 5 to 6 days out, but the impacts might be decent. This will definitely be National Hurricane Center by Thursday, just west of the Azores chain of islands here. National Hurricane Center still has this being a hurricane by then, and it'll definitely be, even if this is not a hurricane by the time it gets to the Azores Island, it'll definitely be a powerful post-tropical system. So those in the Azores, you might actually want to watch out for Gabrielle here over the next several days. Let's move on, though, to the Western Pacific, and I don't typically talk about the Western Pacific because not really in our realm of the kind of tropics we watch. Mainly, I tend to focus on the Eastern Pacific and the Atlantic because that's where most of my interests are for people, or most of the people that I assume that watch me are from either the Caribbean, especially the United States, or even Mexico. So I tend to stay in only just the Eastern Pacific, and of course, especially the Atlantic. But I do want to mention that, there is activity happening in the Western Pacific right now. And we actually have two pretty strong typhoons currently as we speak, as you can see here on the satellite imagery. And in fact, I'll actually show you the intensity of these storms right now using the University of Wisconsin website. I love using this website. Gives me a lot of information. This is where I get the wind shear, the Saharan air, the vorticity maps that I love to show you guys. All comes from this website. But they also have a view of what is going on worldwide in the tropics. And as you can see here right now, we have two strong typhoons in the Pacific. The first one being Typhoon Ragasa, and that is just to the east of the Philippines right now. And that's this very, very large storm that you see here. Classic looking typhoon with a very, very large outflow channel. You can literally see the outflow extends as far south as literally just south of the Philippines. And I bet you the outflow, the expansiveness of the outflow probably is over 1,000 miles with the storms. It's incredible. And this is how these typhoons, especially once they, reach their full blossoming stage, this is how they look. They're really photogenic and incredible looking storms, but obviously very impactful too. So this is going to go north of the Philippines, though, which is a good thing. But we also have another typhoon to watch here, and that is Typhoon Neoguri. And let's really quickly show you the track of both of these storms. Right now, Neoguri looks like it's a Category 2 strength storm right now. Sustained winds of 95 knots, so that's roughly 105 miles per hour. This is going to go out to sea. This is going to strengthen into a major strength typhoon, likely reach Category 4 intensity here, as the forecast has as high as 120 knots, which is around 140 miles per hour. So this is going to go out to sea. So we won't have to worry about Neoguri here, but I think Ragasa is the one that we might have to watch the most, because this will go north of the Philippines, but as you can see here, this eventually begins to bend back towards the west. So this might be a threat to China, and by the looks of it, it might actually be a pretty impactful storm and a pretty strong one for China as well. And so I just wanted to keep you in mind and, notify you of what's going on in the Western Pacific too, because obviously there is a lot of activity happening there right now. We have two powerful storms, and I will say that the Western Pacific, and the reason why this is very significant is because as well, the Western Pacific also has not really been that active this year. Obviously, we mainly focus on the Atlantic, and we're talking about how the Atlantic so far this year has not really been that active, but obviously that's now beginning to change. But neither the Western Pacific has, and I think both of these typhoons are going to be the first typhoons of the year in the Pacific, in the Western Pacific specifically, that reached Category 4 intensity or potentially above. We'll see how much strengthening occurs with both of these storms, but they're definitely both either already Category 4 storms or going to be Category 4 storms. And again, Neoguri, we won't have to watch and be very careful with, but Ragasa, for those in China, you're going to have to watch very closely, and probably as well, even the northern portions of the Philippines are probably still going to get impacts from outer rain bands from Ragasa, as well as Taiwan here. But again, setting our main eyes right now on mainland China, because they might get hit pretty hard by Ragasa as it stands right now. But really quickly, let's go back to the Atlantic just to wrap up for this video. To wrap up for what we have for today. Quite a bit to go over, but at least in terms of our realm of concern, as I'll show you here in the Atlantic over the next week, not much happens in terms of impacts. Yes, Gabrielle does track to the east of Bermuda, and again, I still mention that impacts might occur to Bermuda in terms of maybe some gusty winds, maybe some outer rain bands, and especially with the swells and the rip currents, those are going to be really strong, not just in Bermuda, but also probably up along the entire eastern Atlantic, and even going to be felt as well through portions of the northern Caribbean. But then that moves out to sea, that moves off to the north, and then goes east here. But then, does cross the Azores, and Azores is also another place where there is a population, and there are people that live there. So this will impact people, even though this will not impact us. So those in the Azores, as we get towards the end of the week, you guys might have to watch. And then we're stuck out at a week here, hour 168. Looks like something else tries to happen here in the Western Atlantic. You can see there's something that tries to consolidate here. The GFS is not too enthusiastic about this, but I showed you the Google ensembles yesterday, and the Google model ensemble is very much the Google AI model. I should emphasize that it is the AI ensemble. They're very aggressive with something happening here in the Western Atlantic in the next week, and then they also show potential activity as well in the Northwestern Caribbean and the Gulf. But that is more than a week out, so not really going to be focusing with the operational GFS right now, because it gets very iffy, and things change a lot a week out. So not going to show you with the operational models how things are more than a week out in the Atlantic. But in the Pacific here, you see this is 97E. It strengthens and becomes quite a strong storm here within the next week here in the Pacific. So likely going to have quite a few stronger storms to be tracking here globally, and it makes sense for the month of September. Not only is this month typically the peak of the season for the Atlantic, but it tends to be the peak of activity, at least in the Northern Hemisphere. September and October and even August tends to be the peak of activity worldwide. So lots to go over in the realm of the worldwide tropics. Definitely, watching Gabrielle over the next week, and then we'll see what happens after that. But again, with that being said, I'm going to end it off for today's video. Of course, beyond that, not much else to say for right now. Hoping you enjoyed what you saw today. If you did, please, as I always say, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And if you've already done all those things, even if you've not done those things, enjoy the rest of your day, enjoy the rest of your weekend. As always, I do these videos every single day, so of course, I'll be back with more tomorrow. Until then, have a good day.